It was a warm Saturday evening. Ariba had prepared a special dinner. Her husband, Noman, had just returned from work. Some close friends and family were visiting. Laughter filled the room. Plates clinked. Jokes flew from every corner. Ariba, always the loud one, loved being the center of attention. Remember when Noman tried to fix the car and ended up calling a mechanic? She laughed. Everyone chuckled. Noman smiled politely. Then Ariba said it, the sentence that changed everything. She raised her glass and said, "To my husband, the softest, sweetest, and weakest man I know." The room went silent for a moment. Then laughter exploded. People laughed as if it was the funniest thing they'd heard all night. Even Ariba laughed at her own words. She thought it was harmless. But Noman didn't laugh. He looked down at his plate, hands still. Nobody noticed his silence except one person, his younger brother, Zane. After dinner, guests left slowly. Ariba was cleaning up, humming a song. Noman was sitting alone in the living room. "Are you okay?" she asked casually. He nodded. "Yeah, just tired." "Don't be upset, it was a joke," she added lightly, not even looking at him. He didn't reply. That night, Noman lay beside her in bed. His back was turned. He said nothing. Ariba slept, thinking the day was over, but it wasn't. The next morning, Ariba woke up to an empty bed. She stretched, expecting to see Noman in the kitchen or bathroom, but he wasn't there. She walked through the house. No man, no answer. She checked her phone. No missed calls, no messages. She waited. Maybe he went out to get breakfast. An hour passed, then 2. She called his number. It rang, then voicemail. She called again. Still no answer. Her heartbeat grew faster. She called his office. "Sorry, ma'am. He didn't come in today," the receptionist said. Her hands began to shake. She called his brother, his best friend. No one had heard from him. Panic set in. She ran to the cupboard to check. His clothes were still there. His shoes, too. But his wallet and ID were gone. Then she opened the drawer beside their bed. There was no letter, no message, nothing. Just a silence that screamed louder than words. 2 days passed, still no word. Ariba sat on the floor of their bedroom, eyes swollen from crying. She scrolled through old photos on her phone, Noman smiling, Noman holding her hand, Noman cooking late at night. She began to whisper to herself, "Where are you?" Just then, the doorbell rang. She rushed to the door, hoping it was him. It wasn't. It was a delivery guy. "For Mrs. Ariba." She signed the paper and took a small white envelope. There was no sender name. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a folded note. It had just one sentence. "Maybe the weak ones are simply tired of being strong." Ariba dropped the paper. Her knees gave way and she sat on the floor. The words hit her harder than anything else. Was this from Noman? Was he trying to say something? She remembered all. The times she joked about him. How he wasn't manly enough. How he avoided fights. How he preferred reading over sports. How many times had he stayed quiet? Was he really weak? Or was he just kind? She realized she never truly saw him. Not the real him. Now he was gone. That night, Ariba couldn't sleep. Every corner of the house reminded her of him. The chair where he used to read, the cup he used. Every morning, his pillow, untouched. She walked outside and sat under the stars. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. But sometimes one joke is enough to break a person who's already hurting inside. The wind blew softly. She held the note, close to her heart. Maybe the weak ones are simply tired of being strong. She closed her eyes and whispered again, "Come back, please." But there was no answer, only silence. Ariba sat on the edge of the bed, holding Noman's note in her hand. Maybe the weak ones are simply tired of being strong. That one line echoed in her mind like a storm. It had been 3 days now. No call, no text, no sign of where he went or when, if ever, he would return. She checked his phone location, but it was turned off. His bank account showed no activity. His social media was untouched. He had disappeared, and like a ghost, Ariba tried to go through the motions of her day, cooking, cleaning, going to work, but nothing felt real. Her heart felt heavy, like something inside her was broken. The laughter in her house was gone. The light in the rooms felt dull. Everything felt empty. That evening, her younger sister came over. "You should eat something," she said softly. "I can't. I just want to know where he is." "You think he left because of that joke?" she asked. Ariba nodded slowly. "Yes. I think that joke was the last drop. Maybe I made him feel less for too long." Her sister hugged her, but Ariba didn't cry. She had cried enough. Now she was just waiting. The next morning, Ariba got an idea. She went to Noman's mother's house. "Noman cab aya the last?" she asked. His mother looked confused. "Do din pehle. Sirf kuch dafa I or guy?" Ariba's heart jumped. "Kuch kaha?" The old woman nodded. "Sirf itna kaha. I just want to rest for a while, where no one expects me to be strong." Then he hugged her and left again. That was the last time anyone saw him. Ariba returned home and sat at the dining table, the same table where she made the joke. The memory of that night played in her head like a movie she couldn't pause. She remembered his eyes, the quiet, the fake smile, the silence. She hadn't realized it then. But he was already broken. She got up and opened his side of the cupboard. A pile of his shirts smelled like him. She closed her eyes and held one close. Then she saw something she hadn't noticed before. A small notebook. She pulled it out. It was black, old, with a tear on the cover. Noman's journal. She hesitated. It felt wrong to read it, but she needed answers. She needed to understand what he couldn't say out loud. She flipped through the pages. Most of them were simple thoughts. Today was okay. She laughed again today. I wish I could laugh the same way. But one page was folded. Carefully, she opened it and read, "I'm not angry. I'm tired. Tired of smiling when I'm sad. Tired of holding others up when no one holds me. Tired of being a man who must hide pain. I'm not weak. I'm just not made of stone." Ariba couldn't hold her tears. She whispered to herself, "Why didn't I see this before?" Then she flipped to the very last page. There was no date, just one sentence. "One day, I'll find the peace I deserve, even if I have to walk away for it." That night, Ariba sat in the dark, hugging the journal. She finally understood something. No man didn't leave to punish her. He left to protect what was left of himself. The man she once called soft was stronger than she had ever realized. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. She rushed to open it, but again, it wasn't him. It was another envelope. This time, no name. Just a blank paper inside. One sentence. Again, "Stop searching with your eyes. Start listening with your heart." She looked around. No one was there. She stepped outside. The street was silent, but her heart was loud. What was he trying to tell her? Why these messages? Why so much silence? She closed the door and leaned her back against it. Now it wasn't just about missing him. It was about understanding him, who he was, what he hid, and why she never saw it before. She whispered into the darkness, "Where are you, Noman?" But the silence had no answer, only questions, and she was finally ready to listen. The next morning, Ariba woke up with a decision in her heart. She could not sit in the silence anymore. She had to find Noman, not just to bring him back. but to tell him something she had never said properly. "I understand you now." She took a notebook and wrote one sentence on the first page. "This time, I will listen. This time, I will not lose you." Then she packed a small bag and left the house. Her first stop was Zane, Noman's younger brother. He was surprised to see her. "I need your help," she said softly. Zane looked serious. "I figured this would happen one day." "What do you mean?" she asked. He walked to the bookshelf and pulled out a photo album. "He told me once," Zane said, flipping pages, "if I ever vanish, look for the places that gave me peace." He turned to a page with 4 old pictures: a beach during sunset, a small roadside tea stall, a bench in a quiet public park, a cabin in the mountains. He went to these places when he felt low, Zane added. Ariba stared at the photos. Heart. "King. Can you take me there?" Zane nodded. "Let's start with the beach. That's where he always went first." The next morning, they reached the quiet beach outside the city. Waves touched her feet. Ariba closed her eyes and whispered, "Noman, are you here?" No answer. She looked around. Families, children playing, couples walking, but no sign of him. Then she saw something. Near a rock, a plastic bottle with a paper inside. She ran and picked it up. Her hands shook as she opened it. Another message, in the same handwriting. "You came this far? Now ask yourself why." She sat down in the sand. Zane joined her. "What does it mean?" "It means he's watching. Somehow." "He knows," she said. They moved on to the next place, the tea stall. It was small, broken chairs, simple cups. Ariba asked the old man at the counter, "Do you remember this man?" and showed Noman's photo. The old man smiled. "Yes. He came 3 days ago, sat there, wrote something, and left." "Did he say anything?" "Just this. Sometimes it's not about being found. It's about being remembered the right way." Ariba closed her eyes. This wasn't just a search. It was a journey through Noman's pain, through his quiet world. Third stop, the bench in the park. It was late evening. Ariba sat down, tears falling. There, stuck under the bench, she found a folded note. She opened it. "You called me weak, but weakness is when you don't fight for your truth. I'm done being weak." Zane sat beside her silently. "He doesn't hate me," she said. "No, he doesn't. Ariba and Noman sat on the wooden steps of the mountain cabin. The air was cold, but the silence between them was slowly warming. No more notes, no more running. Now it was time for real words. Face to face. Noman stared into the forest trees. "You always saw me smiling," he said. "But you never saw how heavy that smile was." Ariba looked down. "Because I never asked. I just expected." He nodded slowly. "That night, when you called me weak in front of everyone, something broke inside me." Ariba closed her eyes. She remembered that night too well. It was supposed to be fun, just a joke. But it wasn't fun for him. Flashback. 1 month ago. Ariba and Noman were at a dinner with friends. Someone asked, "What's the one thing you'd change about your husband?" She had laughed and said, "He's too soft. Sometimes I wish he was less emotional, like a real man." Everyone laughed. Even Noman forced a smile. But inside, something cracked. He never spoke about it. But the next morning, he was quieter, colder, more distant. Back at the cabin, Ariba whispered, "I didn't know you were carrying so much." Noman finally turned to look at her. His eyes were calm, but tired. "You never asked, and I never told." "Why not?" "Because I was raised to believe that a man must always be strong. That sharing pain means you're weak. I wanted to be your rock, but rocks don't cry, right? Tears filled Ariba's eyes. I don't need a rock, she said. I need a person, someone real, someone honest. No man looked away. Then, why did it take losing me to realize that? She didn't have an answer. That night, they sat by the fireplace. No TV, no distractions, just truth. Ariba asked softly, "Were you ever planning to come back?" He hesitated. "No, not really. I thought disappearing was better than breaking apart slowly." "But why the notes?" she asked. "Why leave those messages if you didn't want me to find you?" He smiled faintly. "Because I wanted you to understand, not just chase me, but walk through what I felt. Every place I went had a part of my pain. I wanted you to see it, feel it." Ariba nodded. "And I did. Every message, cut deeper than the last." She pulled out the final note from her bag. "You finally found me. But did you find yourself, too?" He looked at it. Ariba continued. "Yes, I did find myself. I found the part of me that listens, that cares, that regrets." Noman's hand slowly reached for hers. She let him hold it. The next morning, they walked together in the forest. Birds chirped. The sun filtered through the trees. For the first time in weeks, Noman looked peaceful. "I wrote those notes at night," he said. "Every one of them. I imagined you reading them and understanding." "I did," Ariba replied. "But I wish you had said all this before leaving." He paused. "I didn't think you'd listen." She stopped walking and faced him. "I'm listening now, and I won't stop." Noman smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it was real. That afternoon, they sat outside the cabin and talked about everything. Childhood, fears, dreams they had forgotten. And then Ariba asked the question she had feared most. "Will you come? Back home?" No man looked at the mountains, then at her. "I will. But not just as your husband. I want to come back as myself. No masks, no silence." Ariba held his hand tighter. "And I'll meet you there, not as the woman who joked, but as the one who now understands." They stayed in the cabin for 2 more days, cooking together, talking, healing, no loud confessions, just quiet moments. And when they finally packed to leave, Noman placed one last note on the cabin table. "This place saved me, but she helped me return." As they drove back to the city, the sky turned golden with sunset. Ariba looked at him. "Do you forgive me?" He smiled gently. "Yes. But more importantly, I forgive myself." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and, in that moment, the past no longer had power over them. The car moved slowly through the familiar streets. Ariba looked out the window. Everything felt the same. But inside her heart, everything was different. Noman was driving quietly. His hand rested on the gear, but his fingers sometimes reached for hers. Not in habit, but in hope. After 2 weeks of distance, silence, and soul-searching, they were finally heading home. But Ariba knew. The hardest part was not finding Noman. The hardest part would be facing everything they had left behind. As they entered their street, neighbors peeked out of windows. Some smiled, some whispered. But Ariba didn't care anymore. This wasn't their story. It was hers. It was his. She looked at Noman. He gave her a small nod. "We don't owe anyone an explanation," he said softly. "No," she replied, "but we owe each other the truth." He parked the car in front of the house. They sat inside for a few more seconds. Silence again. But this time, not the cold kind. "I'm nervous," Ariba said with a sad smile. Noman looked at her. "Me, too. But maybe that's a good sign." As they walked through the gate, The wind moved through the trees. Each step toward the door felt like walking through old memories. Fights, tears, laughter, regrets. Ariba took a deep breath and opened the door. Inside, the house looked untouched. Same sofa, same clock ticking, same dining table where the joke had broken him. She paused and stared at the spot where it all started. Noman followed her gaze. "I remember that night," he whispered. "So do I," she said. "And I remember what I didn't see. Your eyes." When everyone laughed, he nodded slowly. Sometimes it's not the words, it's the silence after them. Ariba touched his arm. This house doesn't have to stay haunted. They unpacked in silence, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. Ariba placed his shoes in the rack again. He hung his jacket where it used to be, but something was different. This time, they weren't placing things back. They were building something new. Later that evening, Ariba sat with her phone in hand. There were over 30 missed calls, unread messages from friends and relatives, and one voice message from her mother. She opened it. "Ariba, Beta. We heard he left. Are you okay? Do you want to come stay with us?" Ariba smiled faintly and replied in a text. "We're home now. We're working on us. Thank you for worrying. I'm okay. He's okay." She didn't need the world's permission to rebuild. Dinner was quiet, but calm. Ariba made dal and rice, Noman's favorite. He took a bite and looked up. "You remembered," she smiled. "This time I'll remember more than just your favorite food." He put down his spoon. "I need to tell you something, too." She looked at him. Noman took a deep breath. "I was scared that if I came back, I'd still feel small in your eyes." "You were never small," she said. "I was just too proud to see how big your heart was." He blinked. Tears filled his eyes. "I wanted to be strong for you," he said. "You were," she replied. "You just didn't have to be alone in it." After dinner, they sat together on the balcony. Stars shone above. The city noise hummed below. "I don't want to pretend anymore," Ariba said. "Me neither," Noman replied. "I want us to talk, fight, cry, heal, whatever it takes." He nodded. "Because real strength is when you stay even when it's hard." She leaned on his shoulder. "And I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. Before going to sleep, Noman pulled a notebook from his bag. Ariba recognized it. It was the same one he used during the days he was gone. He opened the last page and showed it to her. It said, "Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a process, and today, I'm ready to begin." Ariba took a pen and wrote underneath, "And I'm ready to walk with you, step by step." That night, they slept under the same roof again. Not just as husband and wife, but as two people who had chosen to fight for each other. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. And that made all the difference. It had been 3 weeks since Noman came back home. Life was quiet. Too quiet. Ariba and Noman were living in the same house again, sleeping in the same bed, eating at the same table. But something had changed. They were careful with words now, gentle with emotions, and still walking on the edge of healing. They both knew forgiveness had started, but trust was still rebuilding. One afternoon, Noman stood by the mirror tying his tie. He hadn't gone to work since he left, but today he was ready. Or, at least trying to be. Ariba entered the room holding his watch. "You forgot this," she said, smiling softly. He took it. "Thanks." She hesitated, then said, "Are you nervous?" Noman looked at his reflection. Yes, not about work, but about facing everyone again. People talk. Ariba walked closer and looked into his eyes in the mirror. Let them talk. They didn't see the nights you cried. They didn't feel the silence we healed in. Only we know the truth." He nodded, his heart steadying a little. At the office, Noman was greeted with polite smiles and hidden questions. His manager said, "Good to have you back. Everything okay at home?" Noman paused for a second, then replied, "We're working on it, and that's more than I ever thought we could." Back home, Ariba cleaned the study. While wiping the bookshelf, she found an old photo, their wedding day. She stared at it. He looked so happy, so sure, and she looked proud. Not just of him, but of who she thought they'd become. Her eyes filled with tears. That night, Noman came home late. He looked tired, but at peace. "I handled the day," he said, kicking off his shoes. "One step at a time." Ariba brought him tea and asked, "Did anyone say anything strange?" He smiled. "Some people avoided me. Some asked too many questions. But you know what I learned?" "What?" "That I don't need their approval, just your hand in mine." She placed her hand over his. "You already have it." The next day, something unexpected happened. Ariba's cousin Sarah visited. She hadn't come by since the day of the fight, the night Ariba called Noman weak in front of everyone. Sarah sat with a fake smile and said, "So, you two are okay now?" Ariba kept. The rain fell softly outside. It was one of those quiet nights where even the wind whispers. Ariba stood by the window watching the drops race down the glass. Inside her heart, there was peace, but also a storm that still hadn't passed. She remembered the joke, the one that broke them. "I called him weak," she thought, "and it almost destroyed us." Behind her, Noman walked in, carrying 2 cups of tea. He placed one beside her and looked out the window. They stood together in silence, but not the old kind. This silence was full of meaning. After a few moments, Noman said, "There's something I need to say." Ariba turned to him, heart beating faster. She nodded. "I'm listening." Noman looked into her eyes, not like before, not with pain or anger, but with clarity. "I left that night because I couldn't breathe." Everyone laughed. But to me, it felt like something inside me shattered. Ariba blinked back tears. "I thought I was strong," Noman continued. "But that moment made me feel like a shadow of myself." "I didn't mean to hurt you," Ariba whispered. "I know," he said. "But pain doesn't ask permission. It just arrives." He sat down and pulled out the notebook again, the one that had become a part of their healing. He flipped to the last page and took a deep breath. "I've written these words many times," he said, "but I never said them out loud." Ariba sat beside him. Noman began to read. "I am not weak. I am not broken. I am human, and it's okay to fall, as long as I rise with love." His voice trembled, but he kept going. "To the woman who hurt me, and the woman I still love, I forgive you, not because you asked, but because I'm ready." Ariba couldn't hold her tears. She reached out and held his hand. "I never deserved that kind of patience," she said. "But you gave me something bigger than patience," he replied. "You stayed, even when it was hard." She looked down. "There's something I want to say, too," she said. Noman nodded. "I was proud, too proud to admit I hurt you. I thought jokes were harmless. I didn't realize how deep my words could cut." She paused and placed her hand over her heart. "You weren't weak, Noman. You were carrying so much, and I laughed instead of listening." Noman squeezed her hand gently. "We're here now, not perfect, but present." They sat in silence again, and then Ariba stood up. She walked to the shelf, picked up the wedding photo again, and brought it back. "I want us to make a new one," she said. Noman raised an eyebrow. "A new photo?" "No," she smiled. "A new start. Same people, same love, but a better story." Weeks passed. People still talked. Some still whispered. But Ariba and Noman had learned to hear each other louder than the world. They started having dinner with their old friends again. Some asked, "How did you fix it?" They smiled and said, "We didn't fix it. We rebuilt it. With truth, with time, and with words that finally mattered." One day, at a family dinner, someone joked again about Noman's calm nature. Ariba stood up and said with a firm voice, "You call him soft. I call him strong, because true strength is not loud, it's kind, it's patient, and I've seen more strength in his silence than in 1,000 loud voices." There was silence, then quiet nods, and this time, no one laughed. Noman looked at her with love that words couldn't carry. Later that night, he whispered, "You shattered me once, but tonight, your words stitched every broken part." In the end, they weren't just husband and wife. They were two souls that had walked through fire and came out holding hands, not perfect, not untouched, but unbroken.